We are a podcast for product marketers and B2B SaaS who feel misunderstood of what they do.
From someone who truly gets what you do and
basically help you feel less like a misfit, being unignorable in your role. We're not marketers, folks. Everyone is growing, everyone is educating, is evolving in the time, especially us with season 5. Today we have a very, very interesting guest for us, someone who's in the same space, someone who's lived and is still living the same struggle and situation that we've been through. But before I'm introducing him, again, like, it's a new season, everybody got to have like a big reminder of who we are. So I'll pass the mic to one of my co-hosts, Zach.
Yo, Gab, thanks again for the intro. This is Zach on the mic, the Sales Water Lab, still rocking the same title in season 5. Let's kick it over to Eric.
Yeah, Eric Holland, what's up? I'm the Franken marketer of the group, and I wouldn't have it any other way. We definitely have an awesome guest for you. I think it's our first redheaded guest, actually. We're a very diverse and inclusive group here, so we had to make sure we got a redheaded fella on. And Gab, please give us the introduction.
Yeah, so this person is the founder of Prelude, a go-to-market strategy for B2B startups and agency. But when we take a look at his career, he was the CMO at Eddie, head of marketing at Lucid Press, fractional CMO and go-to-market advisor for many companies. Everyone, let's introduce and give a warm welcome to our guest, Garrett Jestice.
Thanks, everybody. Hey, it's great to be with you guys today. Appreciate it.
We're happy to have you, Garrett. And you as I was saying before the call, you've been preaching to us for 8 months to be on the pod a little bit. So very excited to have you here. Before we kick things up, you're a fan of the show. You probably listened to a couple of episodes. It's always the same game. We have a very important question for you. So without further ado, I'll get started. Garrett, are product marketers actually marketers? Why or why not?
All right, you guys already know my answer because a couple months ago I wrote about this on LinkedIn and tagged you guys in. That was my audition for the show, right? So my take on this is a bit nuanced, as probably a lot of people say. I would say, though, yes, product marketers are the purest form of marketers, but the nuance to that is, I would say, based on marketing's definition today, I don't think product marketers are marketers. So there's some nuance there. Happy to explain it, break it down a little bit more. But yeah, I think that product marketing really is the purest form of marketing, but not how we define it today.
Do you have example with what's happening today that in marketing that doesn't feel or isn't marketing to you?
Yeah, for sure. So let me give you a little bit of context. So I started my marketing career thinking I wanted to go into consumer brand management, like be the brand manager of Cheerios at General Mills, that type of thing, right? So I moved to Minneapolis. I lived there. I worked at Target, get some experience on the retail side. The plan was go back, get an MBA, and then go work at General Mills, Procter & Gamble, something like that. So I lived right next to General Mills. I knew a lot of the people that worked there as brand managers. And when I think about some of the purest forms of marketing, I think that's kind of what it is. As a general manager of that business, they really are the general manager, but they come from a strong marketing background. They studied marketing. It's truly strategic marketing. And I think part of the reason why is the risk in a CPG business isn't, can we build the product? It isn't, can we manufacture the Cheerios? It's, can we actually market and sell this in a way that makes money, right? And so when I think about how marketing is different in a tech or SaaS world, B2B world, because, after that I decided, actually that's not what I want to do. I moved to kind of the smaller startup scene. Anyways, I think what's different there is we have segmented the core functions of marketing so much in the B2B tech space, right? There's a separate product team. You think about the 4 Ps, right? There's a separate product team. There's maybe separate teams focused on pricing and packaging. There's separate teams focused on sales, where when you look at a CPG general, brand manager who's really functioning like a general manager, they're overseeing all of that stuff. So I think it's interesting, but I'd say today we're also seeing a shift with AI where in the past tech companies, the big risk is, are you building the right product? And it takes so long to build the product. But I think we're seeing a shift with like some of the AI stuff coming out where we're moving away from that. The risk isn't, can you build the product anymore? It's coming back to, can you market it? Can you sell it in the right way? So anyways, full circle there, but I think it's kind of interesting just with that context.
You lived in Minneapolis?
I did. Yep. Plymouth.
I'm in Bloomington right now.
Oh, awesome. I loved it. It was so
Small world.
I didn't. That's why I left and moved to Mexico.
You don't love it in the winter time, but in the summer, fall, it's hard to beat, man.
It is definitely hard to beat. The winter time, once November hits, get up. So
Yo,
good stuff.
Garrett, I worked for a company that made large commercial roofing materials, right? So anywhere that had a flat roof, hospital, warehouse, whatever. And I got a sense that once I moved over to software, there was this like less risk people felt in doing things. And recently I've started to think back to that experience more and translate it. And my hypothesis is that because we're just typing out ones and zeros, there aren't any raw materials. There isn't any machinery out there manufacturing anything. That word you just said of like de-risking, I'm really hinging on to. Do you feel like there's any sort of correlation with that in terms of kind of an abstract ones and zeros being typed out versus actual products being created?
Yeah. So are you saying you feel like the sentiment in tech is that it's less risky in tech?
Or like, yeah, people are operating feeling like it's less risk. Like they don't have to have that sentiment of selling the product as opposed to just building one.
Yeah, can I add to, no,
go ahead.
Can I add, because I think, Eric, I think you and I are probably thinking the same thing. May I ask in a different way and see if I'm on the same page with you?
Massage my question any way you like.
Okay. Garrett, what we heard is that CPG, the focus was about marketing and selling the product. And then Eric, like, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's like in tech, it's like, it feels like a lot of the focus is talking about the product because we assume there's this assumption that, well, like we are a payroll service with AI. People know what that is. Is that kind of what you're saying, Eric, right here?
Yeah, in a way, like they're not taking things as seriously. Like,
okay,
if they, yeah, like it's almost like, we'll go back to the drawing board, type of attitude.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say, yeah, just to clarify, like what I said before, I think that if you think about tech even 5-10 years ago, right, the risk there is, can we actually afford to build the product that's the right product that gets the job done? That's very different than CPG, right? Where manufacturing Cheerios, maybe there's not as much risk there. Again, I think that's changing. Like the cost to build new products is coming down with AI and everything else, right? And so what I think is that product risk that has existed in tech, plus I actually think venture capital has hurt the healthiness of many businesses. It's kind of padded them a little bit. We have all this money in the bank. We can invest it, I think it's just a different dynamic for sure than legacy businesses, if you will, right?
That component about VCs, is that, like, I have a two-part question to that. First part, does that exist in the CPG world where like you can go and be like, hey, like, here's our box of Cheerios, invest X amount in that? Does that exist in the CPG world? That's my first part of my question.
I think it does. Yeah. I think it's less common though. I mean, in tech, it seems like we're seeing a change, I think, but it seems like the default, again, going back to the risk and the cost and the investment in tech has traditionally been building the product. And you couldn't do that unless you raised money to do it, right? Again, we're seeing a shift where there's more bootstrap companies, but because there's so many companies that have raised so much money, right? I feel like that's a padding for them. And it also, the expectations are so high that they have to move so fast that sometimes they skip over the fundamentals of building a healthy business. So.
And then, so the second part to the question here is that with VCs now, with all this extra funding, why is the first inclination to build more features versus, like what you said here earlier, figure out how to better market and sell what we have today?
You know what? It's such a great question. I wish I could answer it. I think, though, my take on it is that it kind of comes from that idea of traditional tech where build the product and they will come, like build it and it will sell itself type of thing. If you build the perfect thing, then it should just sell itself, right? And I don't think that's true, right? And I think that we all know that that's false, that especially as every market gets more competitive, that, man, the risk in the business really is like the marketing and the sales and that collective go to market. And can you find the right fit for it? It's not necessarily building the product anymore. So anyways.
So sorry, Gab, you can go ahead, man.
Sorry, but I just wanted to kind of double down on what you said in terms of like, that features and kind of guessing while everything works perfectly with product, with sales, with marketing. I've been chatting with a lot of product marketers recently, and like, I think a sentence that many kind of agrees with is go-to-market feels like a gut feeling or like almost like guesswork a little bit. Would you say that you think it's because of that kind of feature guessing game of like, let's create more features to be on par, superior with the competition, but it's becoming a game of like just quantity instead of quality, right? We plug AI, we just start building more and more shit to just be in a situation where I have more features in the competition instead of do I have the right one that they care about?
I definitely think that's a part of it, right? Like the guesswork there. I also think that a lot of companies, what it comes down to is in the early stages, you have to be so focused on your best case study, right? Like your best customer, the right problem that they care about, the right solution you can offer them, and the results that you can get them. And when you focus on too many different case studies, all of a sudden you have this really watered down single product that you're trying to sell to all these different types of groups, right? And because you can build features so fast, right, it becomes guesswork because they don't know who to listen to, who to talk to, right? And so I think that's another aspect of it.
Clarifying question to that. Is it guesswork or is it burnout?
It's a good question. I think few companies actually know who to listen to when it comes to what to build, what to say, all of that. Sometimes that is they're moving too fast and need to slow down. Sometimes it's they actually just don't talk to anyone, and then it is guesswork in that instance. And so I've seen both of those play out with companies that I've worked with. So
okay. The reason why I asked that too, because as you're talking about this, I think a lot about like exercise. Like, it's January 2nd, New Year's resolutions fresh out the gate, and like I haven't been to the gym for the last 7 months, and I want to do everything. And because I want to get fast results, I want to hit every single area. But by day 4 or 5, like your body's just tanked because like you don't have a clear plan, like you're not like measuring like with clear focus. So like that's when you were explaining that, Garrett, that's what came to mind for me.
yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of correlations with that and how a lot of startups are run today.
Okay.
And so Garrett, we got a little game we wanted to play with you. You feeling like playing a game with us?
I'm ready. Bring it.
That sounds so creepy.
Well, I intentionally used a tone of voice that made it sound a little creepier.
You should have the mask from Saw. You want to play?
No, not that. Not that kind of creepy. More like I got a man I dropped.
All right. Our first thing, Garrett, just drop your pin and your location and give us a few days.
So, Garrett, we actually came up with this for Anthony Pieri back in season 1, and we modify it, for everyone's specific needs. So the rules are pretty simple. We're going to force you into a little phone booth situation. We're going to ask you an uncomfortable question with 2 equally uncomfortable answers. There is no C option. There is no pleading the fifth. And then you have to pick whichever one that you'd have to live with. All right.
Okay. Love it.
Cool. So let's get started. Tomorrow you could ship the tier 1 launch, but only have a press release ready, or delay it by 6 months and let the founder grill you every single Friday before you end your week.
Oh man, so hard. I'm going to delay it 6 months.
Just going to take the Friday
I'm just
abuse.
going
I
to
like
take
it.
Yeah.
That's strength. I love it. All right. So would you rather run a live demo for 500 prospects on a product you've never seen before, or do that same demo with 500 prospects with only sketchy Figma mockups that you are familiar with?
The latter.
Yeah.
Sketchy Figma mockups.
Ooh. I would have actually probably taken that one too, if I'm being honest, but it was tough for me. All right. So would you rather not see your messaging show up on any of your marketing content, or not see your messaging show up in any of the sales calls?
I'd rather not see it show up in any of my marketing content.
Huh. We normally don't ask for context, but I need a little context on why you picked that one.
I think marketing and sales messaging is different, but if you really want to get to the heart of where good positioning starts, it's often in sales calls, in my experience, right? Like that's where so much of good marketing messaging flows out of. So if you start there and nail the sales messaging, it becomes a lot easier to nail the marketing messaging later. So
all right, folks, you hear that? Start with sales, not marketing, with your messaging. All right. Would you rather rewrite the website copy 15 times to make the C-suite happy, or just let them do all of it and not have your opinion in it at all?
that is a hard one. And both painful. I'd probably rewrite it 15 times.
You just need a little bit of Garrett in there.
just a little bit, so I can take what they say and hopefully make it a little bit better.
Love it. All right. This is a asset delivery. Would you rather be stuck doing only battle cards every day, or only building one-pagers?
One-pagers.
Nice. At least you're not like Gab. We only give him slide decks to do. And we got 2 more here for you, then we'll get you back to some more serious convo. But you've got a product, a big product launch coming. Would you rather send a release email with one typo that everyone's definitely going to notice, or reread that email 5,000 times before finding the typo yourself to correct it?
I'm going to go with the first one. I've done it before. I think many of us have, and it sucks, but it's probably less of risky than we think it is in the moment. So
I like that answer. I'm gonna shoot first, ask questions later myself. And last one: would you rather get Slack pings from 50 sellers all day, every day, or instead host a daily 2-hour Zoom where those 50 sellers get to vent without a mute button?
Ooh, interesting. I think I would host the Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep some focus for the other 6 hours of your day.
Yeah. Give me
All
some
right.
time to breathe.
All right, Garrett, you can unhook from the torture chamber, and we appreciate you having a little fun with us while we got you loosened up for the rest of this. So, Garrett, I think, we're definitely, the point of our show is more like we would love to be in the marketing boat, but kind of similar. You put it in a great way. It's strayed very much from what we believe the core marketing, the OG marketing is. Why do you think that shift has happened, and why have we strayed so far from the path?
Yeah, I talked about this a little bit just at the top of the call, but I think it's the segmentation of disciplines that exists in tech, right? That you have full departments dedicated to product, to sales, to separate to marketing. So the segmentation there between different departments and disciplines that really need to be working tightly together, I think is part of it, right? That because of that, marketing in tech has, traditionally just been about promotion instead of the rest of the 4 Ps. And I think really good marketing has to be about more than promotion.
So what do you, I know you're a savant. For some of the other folks listening, what can we do as PMMs to make sure that, again, we're not just focusing in on that 1 P, both in our day-to-day habits, but also those KPIs and organizational goals that we're trying to set up?
So I was thinking about this actually a little bit recently, and there have been a lot of companies that have, promoted, and thought leaders that have promoted the idea that the CEO needs to lead go-to-market at every company, right? As a company grows, though, it doesn't mean that they can actually be in the weeds. But if you think about that, if the CEO were to have a go-to-market chief of staff, if you will, someone who was like the right-hand person who could be cross-functional and guide strategy, I don't know if there's a better prepared person at most companies than a product marketer, right? And because of, that's the type of person you need to be. So even if you're not in that role, you need to create that role yourself. You need to be completely cross-functional, work across all of those teams and groups, right? And be kind of the glue between them all, right? And if you can make that your role, that's when you become more effective.
I love the way you
Something
put it. Chief of
Okay.
staff to the CPO is very clear and is explaining exactly what you should be, right? It's the right-hand person to just make sure that, you understand and you bring that market context to make sure that go-to-market isn't a messy flop,
Yeah.
And just to correct Gab, because he's, he knows French as a first language, but it's the right-hand person to the CEO, because I do not want to be the right-hand person to the chief people officer.
Oh, no, but
You
I
said
thought
CPO.
I thought
I'm
Garrett
playing it
said
back during the
CPO,
edit.
product officer, not people.
Oh, I was thinking chief people. I was like, don't put me in the HR department. Whoa.
I was like, well,
Wait.
his take makes sense, right? Like you're the right hand to the product, and then you're bringing that cross department angle. But yeah, the CEO makes a lot more sense, especially based
I'd
on
say CEO, right? So if the CEO should lead go-to-market, right? If that's even feasible, you should be the right-hand person to the CEO working with the CPO, CMO, right? CRO, all of them, right?
Love it.
So
Thanks for the clarification.
someone's hand's not going to be held in this go-to-market circle. Is what I'm hearing. In this.
VP of sales, we won't hold their hands. They're good.
So Garrett, there's something you said earlier that took us back to season 1. We had Pep Leha from Winter on the episode. He said that the CEO is the PMM, similar to what you said. One problem that I noticed, I agree with that, but one problem I see is that a lot of times the CEO, especially if it's the founder, they take that on as, hey, I need to tell people our vision. I need to talk about our product. And then going back to what you said is that the best messaging comes from sales calls, meaning, and what I'm hearing is that listening to what customers are saying versus telling customers. I'm curious, my first part of the question is when you work with clients, do you find that point of view of a CEO being the product marketers meaning that they have to be the one promoting the message? That's my first part of the question.
Yeah, so I do think that one of the best values that a CEO can provide is being the visionary and also the storyteller at their company. And if you can build that founder brand and have them out there telling the vision and the story and the strategic narrative, which is more than just the product, right? It's the problem that they solve and it's the why they, you need that, all of that. I think that's super valuable, right?
Okay. So then the second part is that, and I'm curious on your reaction to this, is that one common mistake I'm noticing is that the storytelling piece matters, and it's that's what gets people in the door. Then the next question is what does the product do? I'm curious, now when you are working with clients, is that pretty much baked out when you come in, or is that the area that you are seeing friction? Going back to what you said earlier, of like, hey, like we're not seeing much of the marketing selling piece going on.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I would say so. I specialize in working with smaller, earlier stage companies, right? So almost all of my clients are under 10 million. They're like a seed, Series A, or the bootstrapped equivalent of that. And so what that means sometimes is the founder's vision of where they want to go is way bigger than where the product actually is today, right? I don't think that's a problem because that's what the founder should be doing. They should be one or two steps ahead of the rest of the company. But what I talk about often with them is when it comes down to like core positioning of their product. Positioning only reaches to spaces you can own in the next year or two. It's not necessarily the same thing as your big picture vision, right? And so when it comes to positioning your product, you have to be really clear about what it does and spaces you can own in the next year or two. That's it. If you go too far reaching with your positioning, right, that's when you get the vaporware that people talk about, and you sold me something that doesn't actually exist. And so it's okay to share your vision, but when it comes to positioning your product, it has to be pretty tight around spaces you can own in the near term.
Got it. I would even like argue and say like not even like 1 or 2 years. I would say what it does right now, because as someone who's been in sales before, when you're talking to products, like, hey, we're going to release this feature in a year, and things get pushed back. So
I think the key is that is spaces you can own in
yep.
the next year or two. You might not even talk about something that you can do today if it's not something that you can definitively own soon, right?
Okay. Okay. I have one more question about spaces too, but before I ask that, I want to pass it to the guys here because there's a really good point you're saying right here.
No, keep it going. I had a different topic I wanted to talk
Okay. One trap like I've noticed so far is that when you say spaces too, is that we want to be everywhere all at once. And we have the guys from Fletch here from previous seasons before where their point of view, and this is what we know, is like, hey, like Anthony said, let's tackle one space. Like let's penetrate this one space before we move on to this next one. I'm curious, like when you have a founder, maybe a team that says like, hey, we're in finance, we're in healthcare, we're in education, like is there a world where you can be at multiple spaces at once as an early stage startup, or do we have to like reel it back and say, hey, let's focus on one first before we move on to the next?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It all comes down to what your goals are for the company and how quickly you want to grow. Most B2B tech companies want to grow as quickly as possible. And so I believe that the quickest way aligns a lot with the Fletch guys, right? I believe the best way to do that is to have a focused niche and then expand once you have tackled that niche, right? As a rule of thumb, I think this was actually from April Dunford where I found this. I might be wrong about that, but as a good rule of thumb, which I agree with, if you're under $1 million in annual revenue, you probably only have the internal resources to focus on one unique customer segment, like one complete case study of person, problem, solution, results you get them, right? If you're under 10 million in annual revenue, you probably only have the internal resources to focus on 3 unique ones. And most companies are going after way more than that, right? And so when you really tighten and focus on building that customer acquisition system for one, then you can expand to the next one and you do it systematically over time. That's the fastest way to grow that I've seen. Do you have to do that? No, there are companies that don't do that, but usually it inhibits their growth. It doesn't help them.
Interesting question, because I've been thinking so much about that recently, probably over the last month. How much is AI going to change that point of view? Because I very much agree with it too. Like when you're small potatoes, figure out something that you can own and dominate that until you hit that milestone, and then maybe work on opening up shop in another segment.
So yeah, how do you see that changing, if at all, now that AI is there? Can these small potato companies maybe take on 2 segments instead of 1? Can that 10 million and less maybe take on 5 segments now? Would love to know your perspective on that.
Yeah, it's something I've thought a lot about, and I think it's a really good thought. I think maybe eventually, but I don't know if AI. I don't think AI is there today. I mean, ultimately, what it comes down to is it's hard enough for most companies to execute one really good go-to-market strategy, like cohesive. And usually, a go-to-market strategy is for a single segment with a single problem. You have a solution, and you can get them specific results. Right? It's that complete case study. It's hard enough to do that effectively. And so, are we going to get to a place where AI can accelerate so much of the execution work where you could have more resources to do more? I think it's possible, right? I wouldn't say it's possible. It's not, but I would say, man, most companies are so far from that it's not anything I would anticipate happening in the near future, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. Like the current system today doesn't make that possible. One thing that sticks out to me is like how many marketers on average are on the team with clients that you work with? Probably one, two, at most four.
Yeah.
And um, that's really hard. Like there's already a lot on your plate. And it seems like with AI today, there's been a starker expectation to do more with limited resources. And it's not like we're getting more money or more people. We're just getting a tool and say, hey, work faster.
The key thing about that though too, which I know you guys know, is AI, good AI output is all about quality inputs, right? And really good prompts. And so a lot of times the quality inputs come down to, do you really know who your best customer is? Do you really know the problem that you're selling? Do you really know how to position it and message it in the right way? And if you don't have those foundations baked in, it doesn't matter how fast AI can pump out crappy content or personas or whatever it is to help you. It's not going to actually help you grow, right?
I love what you're saying there, Garrett, too, because it's like I spoke to a client about this before because the situation was that they were wanting to rewrite their homepage and they're like, well, look at what AI like gave to us. Let's like use that. I was like, that's great. I know you're under a lot of pressure. But using AI to move faster is no different than going to a gym and say, this is my first time doing deadlifts. I'm gonna do this really fast. Like your form could be off, you could be more likely to hurt yourself. That is no different with AI today. I was like, just because you're moving fast doesn't necessarily mean that we're hitting all the right spots that we need to hit.
Yeah. And I think AI is not the problem. It's the lack of quality inputs. Cause like I'll do positioning and messaging projects where I'll leverage AI, but it starts with like customer interviews and team conversations and bringing all of that together. And then AI can get you pretty far, and then you can do some cleanup and editing. Right. So again, it's not the tool, it's about those inputs.
Yeah, exactly. We've got the Wikipedia problem. We're sourcing Wikipedia as our authoritative source, but it could be someone in their basement just putting random crap online and you're sorting it. So,
Hey,
But
Gab, do you mind if I ask Garrett to share a story?
no, go ahead.
Cool. So Garrett, our podcast's easy. We're not marketers, right? And our general philosophy is us PMMs aren't getting enough love, respect, and just general seats at the table. So could you tell us a time when you either felt like not a marketer or weren't really getting that respect and seat at the table at your role?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so here's a confession from me too, right? I've always felt as a little bit of an outsider when it comes to like the PMM world, right? And so my background, I started as like the first marketer at Lucid Press. We launched a new product, Lucid Software. I joined as like the first marketer. There was a couple of engineers, a product manager, and me, and we ran it internally like a separate company. And so I've worn all of the hats, right? I eventually like led that marketing team, but I've never worked on the same team as another product marketer. I'm like completely self-taught as a product marketer. I'm wired like a product marketer, and that's something I've discovered over time. I like those are the things that I love to do, product marketing. That's the stuff I'm good at. but I've always had other hats that I've had to wear in early stage companies, right? And so, I've always kind of felt like a little bit of an outsider to like all these great trained product marketers who've worked in house on these great teams and done these big, campaigns and blah, 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 right? I'm completely self-taught. And so, that has been something that as I've progressed throughout my career, it's made me, second guess and think, but I also think it's become a strength for me too, because I have that breadth of experience across other roles. It helps me do better product marketing type work as well.
Love that. And I know all three of us here joining you, we have all felt like misfits. So you're not alone. I appreciate you sharing that with us.
I would love to get back to what we're talking in terms of, that discussion on I'm a PMM. I'm trying to work on a positioning project and I'm getting told, yeah, but let's go after those multiple segments. And then you get the conversation on, it's too much. It's requiring way too much resources for a size. And as Zach said, they come up with the discussion of, well, let's use AI. What, you don't want to work, or let's cross that bridge when we get there. As someone who worked with B2B SaaS startups, with agencies and all of that, how do you approach that discussion, right? You're talking with a founder and that person is, they're ready to put a helmet and just face against the wall. How would you approach that as a PMM or a founding PMM who's in that situation, who's trying to lead a positioning project, but always keep saying the same stuff of, one offer for one person to get to that differentiation, or at least a mind share piece with the prospects?
So something that's been on an analogy that's been on my mind a lot recently as I've talked with clients. I've heard other people share this analogy before, so you may have heard it before. But if you think about your business as a factory for producing case studies, successful customer case studies, right? Your marketing, sales, product, CS teams, right? Their whole collective job is to produce successful customer case studies, right? A successful customer case study consists of the stuff that we've talked about before, right? I mentioned this earlier on the top of the call. It's a person with a specific problem. They find your specific solution and they get results from it. And so if you think about that, like a question becomes like, how many different case studies can your collective company factory produce at any given time? It depends on the resources, right? And the more case studies you produce, the slower you're going to be at, if you think about a Ford truck factory, right? If they're only producing Ford trucks, they're going to be able to crank those out pretty quickly. If they're producing 10 different types of cars and they have to swap things out here and there in between, they're going to be slower on average, producing those successful case studies. So again, it comes back to speed. It comes back to, capacity, and it comes back to like resources. So, a lot of times I have to help founders understand that it's not just about picking the ICP, but all of these components are tied together. It comes down to your product and your messaging, and you tweak one of those things and it changes something else, and then it changes something else. And the reason why so many, especially early stage companies, struggle to find product market fit is because it's all these things interconnected, and they tweak one thing over here and it messes this up, and they tweak one thing over here and it messes this up. And so what you're really trying to do is search for consistency and repeatability across that case study and across that like factory of being able to produce those case studies. And if you can do that for one really well, like, man, you're golden. You have a really strong company at that point, and then you can start layering on other case studies. So I don't know if that answered your question, but it's something that's been top of mind for me.
It does. I think it's a nice way to put it, right? Try to show patterns of, hey, if we have to work on this, at least let's think about repeatability on how we can apply it further into the business. Do you have something to say, or I was about to jump in with another one?
No, I'm like kind of excited because so he keeps bringing up the term founder, right? Founder. And I know we all still don't know how to work with founders appropriately.
Well, we became them, ultimately. So we're part of the problem, but yeah.
And I know it's a conversation that I even had last week with someone when they were like, I can't get this across to my founder. I'm trying to have this conversation. Do you have any like secrets or any tips that any PMM would love to hear and how to work with their founder personally on an in-house role, or of course, all of us fractionals who are trying to deal with founders that we might have just met last week on a DM? What are some of the things that you're able to do to kind of break through that and help them see the light?
Yeah, so I'll say, like I mentioned, because I work with mostly early stage companies, the primary person I'm working with as a consultant is the founder who's still leading go to market, doing tangible marketing and sales. Again, they might have one or two marketers, one or two salespeople, but that founder is still really involved in that. Secretly, I have a secret mission to help more founders understand what good marketing and sales and go to market looks like, right? I've worked for some founders in the past who get it, and man, it's awesome working with them. And I've worked for some who just don't get it and they think marketing is just promotion or whatever it is, right? And so secretly I kind of have that mission. And so as I've worked with a lot of founders, I think one of the things that helps a lot is understanding at the end of the day that a founder doesn't care about the distinctions between marketing and sales and different product and teams. They don't care about any of that. They care about growing the business and growing revenue in the business, right? And so you have to speak their language. And if you can speak that language well and you understand the metrics of and financial metrics of business, and you can help them understand how whatever you're doing as a product marketer is going to help impact the bottom line. It might not be right now. It doesn't mean immediate revenue, right? There's long-term revenue impacts as well. But you have to be able to speak their language and help them understand that, hey, this is overall going to help us build a healthier business that will eventually grow revenue. I think that's the thing that's helped me at least the most is when speaking with founders, is helping them understand, you're at a stage, you got to slow down a little bit and get these foundations locked in, or now we're at a stage where we can accelerate because we know what to do. That's just speaking their language helps a lot.
One clarifying question for you is that I feel like I make this mistake all the time. When we speak about founders, we put this in one composite group. You said earlier that, hey, there's founders who get marketing and there's founders who may not get marketing. On that latter camp, like how do you navigate those ones who don't get marketing, and on a deeper level, who, like you said, dismiss marketing and that like minimize the function? Because the reason why I'm asking selfishly is that I've worked with some leaders where it's like, it's clear the help is needed, but they dismiss your guidance. They dismiss, like, they take the seat away from the table. They say, hey, you go sit over the kids' table right there, and you just go color and tell me when you're done. So I'm curious, like, what are you doing in these situations, Garrett? Are you walking away and say, hey, I'm not going to work with you guys? Like, you're not a fit for my business? Or like, or what are approaches maybe for some like fractional marketers or in-house marketers who are just working under founders who's not, it's okay if you don't get it, but if you're not willing to work with us here, how can we move forward?
Well, one of the benefits of being a consultant is you get to pick who you work with, right? And so truthfully, the last couple of years as I've done consulting, I have seen definitely there are some founders who come and say, I just need leads right now, get me leads, right? And they're not a good fit for me to work with. And there are some that come and say, I know that there's stuff broken here and I don't really know what it is or what to do. And it's going to impact lots of things, but I'm willing to put in the work, help me figure this out. Those are the ones that are a better fit for me. So, as a consultant, like that's a benefit. When you're in-house sometimes, right, you're already in a full-time role, you discover that you're working for a CEO that minimizes marketing. That's not as easy to do, right? And so, but I would say long-term, as a product marketer, I would prioritize working at companies where the founder gets it and where they value it, right? And if not, I would, in the long run, look for other companies where you can find that. In the short term, if you're working at a company where that's the case, then what I'd probably try to do is, again, get wins that they see as wins in their own language, right? Which really a lot of times comes down to like revenue. It doesn't have to mean short-term revenue, but you got to show the impacts of your work and how it grows revenue for the business. And if you can do that, sometimes you can start to win over some of those founders. If not, I would move on and try and find someone who gets it, you know?
Quit your job.
Eventually, right?
Exactly. Too. There's one thing that you said here, Garrett, that I think that's really, I think I mulled on a lot and I struggled on, and I still do, is that sometimes like our work doesn't directly connect revenue. Like, let's say for instance, like you are building out a new web page to talk about the product use cases. I think like I think we can show like, hey, like this is how much traffic is generated, but then it's really hard to connect the dots to that revenue piece. And I'm not saying like, so I'm curious, like it's like I think where I'm trying to say is that like for marketers who are trying to connect to revenue, but let's be real, like web traffic doesn't connect to revenue. Like it could be an input, but like how do you help educate like a founder in that situation? Say, hey, like marketer, like or founder, like yes, like you're not going to see revenue here tomorrow, but here's how this work is laddering up to the vision that you want to see.
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's honestly, it's one of the reasons why I have discovered that I like working with early stage companies because you can have such a bigger impact. They're not doing as many things when it comes to marketing. So when you put out this campaign, when you do this or that, and you see an impact in terms of like more leads coming in, you know they're probably correlated because we're not doing anything else, right? And so like I like seeing that impact for marketers that work at larger companies that are doing tons of initiatives simultaneously. It can be a lot harder to kind of suss that out and like, did this actually have this impact? But I would look for some of the smaller wins along the way that can kind of prove that you're on the right track. So, you know, for example, are you talking to the right people, right? Are you reaching them? Like if you have a podcast, right? Are listeners to your podcast your ICP? If not, then something's broken there, right? Are people actually consuming your content who you would ultimately eventually want to sell to? If you're creating, you know, sales materials, one pagers, are salespeople actually using them? And do they actually find value in them? A lot of times it comes down to like just going and asking them, right? And if they're not using them and they're not finding value in it, then find out what would be better and what else you can create for them instead. So I think it's finding those small wins that you know might be still one or two steps removed from direct revenue, but are indications that you're on the right path and doing the right stuff.
I think, you know, from my perspective, I've grown into that phase too. Like as a younger PMM, I was like, how do I connect anything? Right. And for the, you know, earlier listeners who are just getting started in product marketing, it'll be a growing pain. But anyone, I'm sure Garrett wouldn't mind getting a little DM and hearing how they could connect, learn how to make some more impact on the business. So guys, we're getting towards the last several minutes here of our hour with Garrett. Are there any other big questions you wanted to run by him?
I have one. So, you know, we talked about lots of stuff today, and thank you, by the way. I think it was an awesome episode. But if we think about messy go-to-market execution, especially in a startup context, what key tips would you advise product marketer to pay attention to? And by that, I mean, what do you think they should keep doing, start doing, or stop doing?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And it's a loaded question we could probably talk about for a whole episode in of itself. But I would say what I have discovered in working with earlier stage companies, which I think is true across the board, is oftentimes, you know, we face a go-to-market challenge like how do we grow revenue? How do we get more leads? And we think it's about channel execution, right? As founders, sometimes as marketers, we jump straight to, well, let's run more ads. Let's do more SEO. It's the execution of marketing. And what I have found time and time again is that usually when something's broken, when it's not working, when it's messy, it goes back to like the foundations. If you don't know exactly who you're selling to, what exactly to sell them and how to position it, which channels you should optimize for and why, right? All of those core product marketing foundations, if you tighten those up, then the execution gets so much easier, right? And you start seeing more results. So, I mean, I had a call with a client a couple weeks ago, and we were talking through this type of work, and they said, well, how do we go pitch the founder on hiring you? Because I know he's going to say, well, we just need more leads. Why are we going to spend time doing this stuff? And I kind of explained this idea to him that, you know what, when stuff's not working, you feel like you need more leads. It's usually not about running ads or anything else. It's about, do you have tight, cohesive, clear foundations? And the leader was like, who actually comes from a sales background. He's like, yeah, you nailed it. It's true. That's exactly right. And that's exactly what I'll tell him. So that's at least what I've seen, is it comes back to like those core foundations and making sure that those are cleaned up. And then everything else that feels messy gets a little bit cleaner after that.
That's good. I also love it how people directly ask you, how can I sell you internally? That's great.
Sometimes you get lucky. You find good people, good prospects, right?
Well, cool. Garrett, this has been an awesome hour together, man. We always like to give you a chance to promo anything you got coming up, while also letting people know where to find you other than the classic LinkedIn. So, you got any shout outs that you want to let our audience know about?
Yeah, appreciate it. This has been an awesome conversation, guys. So I am active on LinkedIn. Hit me up there whenever. Happy to answer any questions, help any way I can. I also write a Substack newsletter. It's called GTM Go-to-Market Foundations. You probably heard me talk a lot about that stuff today. So that's stuff I think about, right? And so I'd love to connect with you there as well. So yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and I'd love to chat. So thanks for having me on today, guys. It's been an awesome conversation.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. And this was our first real conversation where we talked about go to market in a way that I don't feel like sounded like word salad. So for all of our listeners, you now know where to go when you've got the inevitable question, what does go to market mean? And how do I talk about it internally? So thanks for joining us on another episode of Gab, tell them.
We're not marketers.
Yeah. We'll see you next time, everybody.
Thank you.
Listening to We're Not Marketers. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe, review our podcast, and share this episode with other PMMs. Thanks again, and see you soon.